No, like just because so he has.
No.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bar. But finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light's shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice was made for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive between the 101 and the 5. Do you know how far the detour takes you? Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright.
Hey, folks. Today's episode brought to you by our favorite sponsor, Sunset Lake Seder. You can go to sunsetlakesebede.com, use the code LEFTISBEST, one word, and get 20% off. 20% off tinctures, smokables, lotions, salves, fudge, coffee, gummies, all sorts of gummies with ashwagandha mushrooms for focus and melatonin for sleep. You can get some of the the good night oil tincture, which basically ensures that I get a good night's sleep as much as possible. All of their products, third party tested. They use no pesticides. They use integrated pest management in their farming. Their farming practices are fantastic. They use regenerative farming to take care of the soil. They've developed with the University of Vermont. Their business practices are great. $20 minimum wage, mostly employee owned. They're movement partners. They've donated thousands of dollars to strike relief funds, carceral reform, refugee resettlement, Planned Parenthood, food pantries. It's crazy. They've done mutual aid during the Vermont floods. Just a great all-around company and a great product. Go onto their site, see exactly what's in every product that you buy from them. Sunset Lake Sebede, because, saying the actual letters is somehow problematic on some of these platforms. sunsetlakesebede.com. Use the code LEFTISBEST. You will get 20% off. And now, time for the program.
Start over.
Cue audio. Oh, we'll try that one more time. Now for the program.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day is Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, July 26, 2024. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Kamala Harris gains in the polls amid a huge surge of volunteers and cashola. Meanwhile, in the wake of his U.S. visit, Netanyahu complains of Harris's shift in rhetoric. Same time, 45 American doctors and nurses who volunteered in Gaza call on the U.S. administration to end arming this madness. UK considers cessation of arms sales to Israel and will be withdrawing its objections to Bibi Netanyahu's arrest as a war criminal. Trump Inc. scrambles to find a new narrative beyond Vance's unpopularity and couch fetish. Elena Kagan calls for enforcement of a Supreme Court ethics code. Gavin Newsom orders California state agencies to start clearing homeless encampments without an answer as to where they will go. Homicides in this country continue to fall, now below pre-pandemic levels. Starvation spreads in Sudan as the U.S. announces mediated peace talks start in 2 weeks. And the deputy who killed Sonia Massey apparently was discharged from the army for serious misconduct. Elon Musk's transgender daughter speaks out for the first time in response to Musk's derangement. French Olympics opens today, and in news, longtime listeners will know I find incomprehensibly exciting. Biden picks Val Demings to fully staff now the Postal Board of Governors. She is no fan of Louis DeJoyce. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is Newsday Tuesday.
No, it is not.
No, it is not.
No, it is not. It is Friday.
I know. I got distracted by the Here, why don't you zoom out just a little bit too?
Me? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I had the. Oh my
zoom
gosh.
out just a little bit. It's Casual Friday. Matt is off.
As you could have probably told.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Bradley
guys.
is
Bradley
doing double
knows
duty.
like who the representative is in some state house district in Kentucky, but doesn't know how to crop an image. That's the skill set that he provides
I
for
have a few
us.
There you
hats,
go.
just not that one.
There you go. Emma, just zoom out just a hair.
Oh my
Just a-
gosh.
just a hair.
What if we just
Well-
had presets? What if we had preset
Listen, send me the directions on the presets, and I will.
I have enough stuff going on right now.
Shabiri on the IM says Sam is sundowning at noon on a Friday. yeah, that's pretty accurate. You know, it's been I don't know if people have picked up on this, but there's been a lot of news over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And summer's also just a difficult time. Fellow parents, and really only parents, should be able to talk about the news. But fellow parents will know that summer's sometimes very, very tricky because your schedule gets messed up with the kids, and so they don't behave in the predictable ways, and that becomes a bit of a challenge. But we don't need to talk about that. That's not what we're here for today. We are going to now. I know I say this all the time. But we are going to get to calls early today. But want to start with Kamala Harris speaking after she spoke with Bibi Netanyahu. I don't know if yesterday you played the her statement or showed her statement in the wake of the protests.
It had happened a little later. We discussed it. Yeah, I mean, I hadn't noticed it was on VP letterhead, right, versus the campaign saying something. I think that's notable. She's trying to walk a tightrope of campaigning and attempting to differentiate herself while also not undermining the administration that she's still a part of. The statement was still bad, kind of a boilerplate Democratic statement, but still bad, mostly in the sense of it didn't account for the possibility that the people that did that graffiti, we have no idea who did that, right? And it painted the rest of the protesters, which included family members of the hostages, as participating in anti-Semitism. But the thing about what the next few months are going to be like, and it's going to be contentious, is that she's going to have that tension throughout, which is trying to campaign and maybe create some daylight between her and Biden, and also still be a part of an administration that in theory is pursuing this delicate ceasefire as well. So every part of her public commentary is going to be as dissected as anything.
And this is the speech that she gave, or I should say her words after speaking with Bibi Netanyahu yesterday.
I have met with the families of these American hostages multiple times now, and I've told them each time they are not alone, and I stand with them. And President Biden and I are working every day to bring them home. I also expressed with the Prime Minister my serious concern about the scale of human suffering in Gaza, including the death of far too many innocent civilians. And I made clear my serious concern about the dire humanitarian situation there, with over 2 million people facing high levels of food insecurity, and 500,000 people facing catastrophic levels of acute food insecurity. What has happened in Gaza over the past 9 months is devastating. The images of dead children and desperate, hungry people fleeing for safety, sometimes displaced for the second, third, or fourth time. We cannot look away in the face of these tragedies. We cannot allow ourselves to become numb to the suffering, and I will not be silent. Thanks to the leadership of our President, Joe Biden, there is a deal on the table for a ceasefire and a hostage deal. And it is important that we recall what the deal involves. The first phase of the deal would bring about a full ceasefire, including a withdrawal of the Israeli military from population centers in Gaza. In the second phase, the Israeli military would withdraw from Gaza entirely, and it would lead to a permanent end to the hostilities. It is time for this war to end, and end in a way where Israel is secure, all the hostages are released, the suffering of Palestinians in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can exercise their right to freedom, dignity, and self-determination.
And I just want to correct something, I think, on your behalf, Emma. What the actual F says, Emma, do you really think her speech wasn't that much different from Biden's, or the boilerplate Democrat instead of talking points? That was in reference to a response to the protesters. I mean, this speech, and again, it's just a speech or comments or however you want to call it, is definitely different rhetoric than
Yes.
Biden has been using. It that can only go as far as it can go. And it may not be sufficient for, folks who voted uncommitted. There's certainly some uncommitted delegates in, I think, in Minnesota who have come out and spoken to this. There are others who want, I guess, more explicit rhetoric and perhaps a pledge to condition military aid. And I think, it will be seen if she will go that far in the coming weeks. She's been the candidate for 5 or 6 days. She is still a member of the administration. But the rhetoric has changed. That's sort of necessary, but insufficient. I know, Emma, you were looking at what Trita Parsi was writing.
Yeah, let's maybe we can pull that up, Bradley. I sent it a little bit earlier in our chat, not the Trita Parsi comments, not the Axios article. We can get to that in a second. But Trita, who we've had on the show a bunch of times and is quite critical of the Gaza policy by the Biden administration. I sent it earlier, Bradley. I can just read it at least here.
Just read it for now.
If I can find it. Just takes 1 second. He said, Kamala clearly broke with Biden on Israel in terms of rhetoric and tone, but there was also substance shift. Biden has disingenuously claimed that Hamas blocked a ceasefire deal. By saying that she urged Netanyahu to, quote, clinch the deal, Kamala pointed to the real obstacle. And that is these are the kind of subtleties that we're going to need to look for, I think, in the as I was saying earlier, to indicate movement on that front. I wish she were going further, but she has to both balance her role in the administration, as I said earlier, and her campaign. I hope she meets with the uncommitted people. I hope she gives a more concrete answer on this. But this other news item was important too, that Netanyahu was reportedly pissed by her comments, both her private comments to him and what she said in public. This was a report in Axios, Barak Ravid, naturally. If we could go to the part where it says that the Israeli sources said they did not approve of or like her speech. The quote is, two Israeli officials said Netanyahu's meeting with Biden was much more constructive than their meeting with Harris, than his meeting with Harris. It's hard for me to see. The font's kind of small. But two Israeli officials said Netanyahu's meeting with Biden was much more constructive than his meeting with Harris, but stressed the meeting with the vice president wasn't tense or difficult. The Israeli official says Netanyahu and his team were caught off guard by Harris's on-camera statement and taken aback by its tone, which they said sounded much more critical than Biden's. Harris's statement after the meeting was much more critical than what she told Netanyahu in the meeting, one Israeli official claimed, although at the same time, they're also claiming in that article that the meeting with Biden was more constructive. So I'm not sure how you can have it both ways in that to that degree. So she's trying to signal. I wish she would go further, but I think the overall sentiments I want people to internalize is that we're in a better position than with Biden in the White House to make meaningful changes in this genocide, because the point is that she at least is showing responsiveness to the outrage amongst the base about this. And that's what we can hope for in terms of just like a practical reality right now. So in the meantime, we keep pushing. But I think we also should indicate that, or draw the contrast, that Biden's taking like $100 million from, not Biden, sorry, Trump's taking like $100 million from Miriam Adelson to annex the West Bank, and then Kamala Harris here is better than Biden, showing more willingness on this front, and with half of Democrats not showing up to Netanyahu's address, that means that there's a crack in the door with the party right now that hopefully we can exploit.
Yeah, I mean, I think in time will tell if her rhetoric gets stronger, and if this also changes the calculation for Netanyahu. 2 weeks ago, Netanyahu thought that Donald Trump was going to be president, and in 6 months, and that he was going to get free reign, and if he could hold out to that time. And now he may be making the calculation that he's not going to get a better deal than what Biden is offering him, or, he's not going to get a more sympathetic U.S. president than Biden, which I think is true. I think it would be, outside of Trump, or outside of, frankly, significant portion of the Republican Party. I don't think he would get a more sympathetic ear than Trump, but the calculation is shifted for Netanyahu, I would imagine. So we will see what happens in the coming days, coming weeks. But again, I don't think that Harris's rhetoric is going to be sufficient for some folks. But again, it's also it's definitely better than Biden's for what it's worth.
And I trust someone like Trita Parsi and others like Lily Greenberg Hall, who I think that's her name. I'm sorry, her first name's Lily, who was one of the administration officials who resigned from the Biden administration in protest of the Gaza policy, saying that there's more optimism and that these little symbolic gestures within the context of international diplomacy, they're meant to indicate things, even though they're not explicit and it is insufficient. It just means only that she can be pressured, and I think that she can be.
Yeah, I think that's the point. And we'll talk about this dynamic too, because it cuts both ways. There's an opportunity for her to be pressured on Israel in a way that I think Biden was not pressurable. But that also cuts the other way too. And we'll talk about the sort of ongoing campaign to get her to roll back some of the antitrust enforcement that has taken place during the Biden administration. First, a word from our sponsors. If the opening of the Olympics, Mila came to me the other day and she's like, have you been watching the Olympic basketball? And I'm like, no, I didn't even know it was happening. I had a chance to do anything.
Is she watching the women or the men?
She's watching the men.
Oh, yeah.
She's like, LeBron's playing with Tatum and Drew Holiday.
Wow. Mila.
I'm like, Mila.
She should come on ESPN.
No kidding. But my point is, if supporting foundational health was a sport, you'd want Ritual on your team. Or maybe Jaylen Brown. They made Essential for Men a multivitamin that's based solely on science and designed to help fill common nutrient gaps in the diet with 10 key nutrients. Look, for me, there's two things about Ritual that has made it really helpful for me. One is I kept buying, my doctor kept saying, dude, you're old. He wouldn't say dude. You're old. You need to start taking some supplements, particularly your vitamin D is low. I would be like, I'm doing it. I would leave the doctor's office. I would buy a multivitamin, and then I would finish it, and then I would forget to ever buy another bottle. Ritual gets you on a subscription. They'll send it so you'll never forget. But the other thing that became even more important when I found Ritual was that you can know where the elements of what you're taking are from. In other words, they trace their supply lines for where they get the various vitamin Ds or whatever it is in the multivitamin. And that's important to know because there are some places that don't have an FDA or a USDA or whatever, and don't necessarily have the best of farming and or an EPA practices. But for the rest of you, Ritual has 10 key nutrients. They are in 2 delayed release capsules. Oh, and this is the other part. The capsules are designed to dissolve later in the small intestine, which is both an optimal place to absorb nutrients, and it's also gentle on an empty stomach. And that was the other problem I used to have with my vitamins, is that like, if I forgot to take them at exactly the right time, I would skip them because I'm like, I don't want to get a stomach ache. Now I can take them when I remember to take them because I'm not worried about what it's going to do to my stomach. Ritual works with world-class certification bodies to validate their products. Ritual multivitamins are vegan. They are non-GMO, project verified. They are gluten and major allergen-free, and they are made traceable. Ritual uses scientific tools to select lower carbon packaging, prioritize sustainability, source ingredients, and set ambitious climate goals. Ritual is a female-founded B Corp. And as a B Corp, that means they hold themselves accountable to not just the company's financial health, but also to the health of people and our planet. Essential for Men is a quality multivitamin from a company you can actually trust. Get 25% off your first month for a limited time at ritual.com/majority. Start Ritual or add Essential to Men to your subscription today. That's ritual.com/majority for 25% off. Just getting back to where, and of course, we'll put the link in the podcast and YouTube descriptions. Getting back to what we were talking about with Bibi Netanyahu's visit to the country, and the UK apparently has now withdrawn its objections to the ICC's prosecutor seeking a warrant for the arrest of Bibi Netanyahu and I think it's also Gavir and 3 other officials from Hamas.
And this is Keir Starmer's, Labor Party. Like, this is potentially something that we could see in the next administration for the Democrats. These like subtle shifts on this front is my guess here.
And yesterday, the Hill's Niall Stannage spoke with National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby at a press conference and questioned if there wasn't some type of conflict between A, reclaiming moral authority, and B, having a potential war criminal address Congress.
Just to take the long view of this, very early in President Biden's presidency, February the 4th, 2021, he spoke at the State Department about his priorities in foreign policy. And he said that one of those priorities was reclaiming our credibility and moral authority. The Prime Minister of Israel is, in the judgment of the Chief Prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, a war criminal. Isn't posting an alleged war criminal in the Oval Office undermining of credibility and moral authority?
No, because we don't consider him a war criminal.
But the International Criminal Court does.
We don't agree. And as we've said before, we don't find the ICC's finding to be relevant or appropriate in this case. We don't find him to be a war criminal. He's an ally and a partner and a friend.
Well, the Chief Prosecutor says that Israel does have legitimate war aims, of course, but the way Israel chose to achieve these in Gaza, namely intentionally causing death, starvation, great suffering, and serious injury to body or health of the civilian population, are criminal.
Is that a question? Because if it is, I've already answered it. We don't consider him a war criminal.
I should say, I should correct myself. It was Gallant, who was the second Israeli official, along with 3 Hamas officials. And this question was asked before, in my understanding, before we knew that the British were going to essentially rescind their complaints or objections to this prosecutor seeking those warrants. And look, we also know that there have been investigations ongoing for a decade with the ICJ, and that for that decade, according to reporting from The Guardian and 972 magazine, Israel was literally threatening the last ICJ prosecutor.
I think the ICC on that story, just not ICJ, right?
Excuse me, the
ICJ because they go after criminals.
Right,
yeah.
International Criminal Court prosecutor. The predecessor to Khan, who is now the prosecutor, which incidentally Israel at the time said, well, we're in favor of his installation as the prosecutor because he's more reasonable. Well, he's more reasonable, and he also has found that they are criminally liable. Again, their process is he's applying for a warrant. But this is where we're at. The idea that the United States suddenly has the ability to adjudicate these things and no longer thinks that these pronouncements from these international courts are valid is laughable. I mean, it's disgusting. And
well, it's in the same way that Israel can investigate itself that they always claim, right? Like we've heard John Kirby come up there and say, well, we trust Israel to have a good process of investigating when they killed 4-year-old girl Hind Rajab with a strike. We'll get back to you on that. Have they gotten back to us on that? Not exactly sure. And the UK is also announcing it'll resume funding for UNRWA. I'm not sure if you saw that last week. So that's, and then we've talked about how this Labour Party that it has just gotten into power in the UK has kind of sprinted towards the center. But the fact that they're doing this and the United States now stands alone as the only major funder of UNRWA to not resume funding and standing alone in giving a middle finger to the ICC should give you an indication of how obsessively Zionist this administration under Biden is and the team that he's put together in the State Department with the West exec folks, with Blinken, with Sullivan, McGurk, spokespeople like this. So part of why I'm emphasizing this is that this is just so exceptional in the bad way. And it'll be interesting to see if maybe they even take some of those steps that we're seeing the UK do in order to have more synchronicity with Harris's administration if she chooses to go in a more sane direction, which I think she probably will. Or is Biden still so recalcitrant and obsessed with Israel that he'll cause problems for her by being this obsessively dogmatic, even when he's a lame duck?
I think he will. I mean,
well,
I
right.
think
He's been selfish this entire time. Why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he?
Well,
Yeah.
my sense is he has made in what in his mind is the ultimate sacrifice, and he will influence this policy to the extent that he can. But again, if Harris at least on some level is indicating that there's going to be a change of policy, it will create some pressure on Netanyahu. But we'll see. I don't know that she's going to provide people with some people with enough evidence of change, or that she can, frankly, even while maintaining as both the vice president and a candidate, that's going to satisfy people. But that's where we're at this point. We shall see going forward. Joe Snuffy, hearing Harris's pathetic non-statement about Gaza yesterday makes me worried that she doesn't have what it takes to win. You can't triangulate between genocide good and genocide bad. If she sticks with this position, she's going to lose. I mean, I don't. I think that just the evidence from an electoral standpoint is that there are people who are heavily invested in this issue, who are seeing it in a different light than you. But I don't know. I hope you're wrong, but we'll see. I also hope she goes further than she's gone. But when we talk about the opportunity to pressure her, Harris, on this, that she represents a more, in the words of Ole Olemi, an easier foe to litigate against on this topic. There is a interesting analogy, but on a side in which I don't want her to be swayed. And that is in what the Biden administration has done in antitrust. Mentioned this the other day, I guess, when we were talking, when we were interviewing, who was it Elizabeth Pancotti from the Roosevelt Institute or Forward, whichever the 503
Roosevelt Forward, yeah.
Roosevelt
right.
Forward. That we were talking about, where is she going to land on her economic proposals? We have a better idea of that, but we don't necessarily know where she's going to land in terms of antitrust. And here is a couple of clips that indicate, at the very least, she's getting pushed by, on one hand, Harris is getting pushed by folks who are against genocide, who are against open air prisons and ethnic cleansing and killing of tens of thousands of children. And on one side, she's getting pressure in that way. On another side, on like a big money and corporations and donors, she's getting pressured to roll back and undermine the antitrust gains that have been made at the FTC with Lina Khan. Here is from yesterday, CNN's Matt Egan on with Reid Hoffman, who is the LinkedIn co-founder, apparently giving $7 million to Harris
And there was one donor who was quoted in the New York Times piece about this, who said that they think, like, essentially, oh, she'll dump Lena Khan, and it was the quote. The source was one major Democratic donor. You know, I don't know this for a fact.
This is the point. We don't know what she's going to do.
We don't know, but it could be him. Yeah.
Trump wants tariffs, which is anti-business. Makes this a very strange election indeed, because I think actually Vice President Harris is much more of the pro-business candidate than Trump and Vance.
But Vice President Harris, she wants to raise the corporate tax rate. The Harris-Biden administration, or Biden-Harris administration, has in fact imposed tariffs. So aren't there some anti-business concerns there as well?
I think what's most important for business is stability of a country, unity, rule of law. And, a percent difference in corporate tax, or 2% or 3% difference in corporate tax, is far, far less important.
Now, the Trump campaign, of course, has argued otherwise, saying that former President Trump is the one that's going to put more money in the pockets of American families, and blaming the Biden-Harris administration for the high cost of living. Now, even Reid Hoffman conceded that he's not thrilled with all parts of the Biden administration. In particular, he strongly criticized Lena Khan, the FTC chair. He said that Lena Khan is, quote, waging war on American business. And he went so far as to say that he hopes that a President Harris would replace Lena Khan at the FTC. Now, the agency pushed back, telling CNN in a statement that Chair Khan is honored to work in this administration, where she has worked to protect consumers, workers, and entrepreneurs from corporate abuses. And it's worth remembering that Lena Khan, she's won some fans on the left for her efforts to fight monopolies, to try to push back against the big oil and big tech. And interestingly enough, she even has a fan on the
Republican side. I think he was about to say, there's that guy weirdly also speaks like he's on an Instagram video. But this is an attempt by the sort of the corporate interests on the Democratic side of things to influence Harris and to sort of like lay down a gauntlet, do these sort of like vague passive aggressive threats on some level, tied in with somebody who's got $7 million and whatnot. And, we'll see what happens here. They know, or they think that they know, that she's pushable on this. Does that mean that they're going to succeed? No. I mean, this is like the same dynamic I think that we're in terms of Gaza and the Biden administration's policies. In fact, I'm not convinced that that Elizabeth Warren's coming out early in this process and endorsing her when there was still talk of like some type of, mini primary, wasn't a function of her trying to get there first and make sure that she's in Harris's ear and maintaining, if not building upon the gains that Warren sort of like part of the party looking for antitrust is not carried forward. Here's IAC Chairman Barry Diller talking to Andrew Sorkin on CNBC. This is all coming from the business press as to what he would do in terms of lobbying Harris.
This is how you have to. Everybody flip-flops because conditions change. You run in the primary to the left or to the right in order to get it. Then when you get the nomination, you cove towards the center, which is sensible to do. It's all pragmatic.
Pause it for 1 second. Let me also just weigh in on this. This is not so relevant to this, but this conventional wisdom is not really the case as much as it used to be. Joe Biden, when he was in trouble, when he was facing calls to be pushed out, he did not tack to the center, folks. He came out and said 5% cap on rent. He came out and said expansion of Medicaid and Medicare. He came out and said
Canceling medical debt.
Canceling medical debt. These are attacks to the left, not to the attack to the center. And clearly this was him in the, he's in the general election mode, although it turned out he wasn't in any mode.
Well, he was oddly in the prime. That's what we were saying is part of the frustration was he was in a fight for his life for the Democratic nomination. And that's why he was pulling all that out. Harris now is actually in the general election. So it'll be fascinating to see without abilities to kind of influence her throughout a long, protracted primary process, who gets their way.
When you get the nomination, you cove towards the center, which is sensible to do. It's all pragmatic. There's no, let's not talk about honesty in these contexts.
But there have been reports that a number of prominent Democrats have been lobbying Harris to drop people like Lina Khan. Do you think that that's going to happen? And would you lobby for that?
Yeah, I would.
You would?
Yeah, I think she's a dope.
Of course you do.
There you go.
Well, and to your point about Warren, I mean, Lina Khan is the chair of the FTC because of Elizabeth Warren. Because Elizabeth Warren endorsed Biden and dropped out and was a part of that coalescence of candidates that dropped out to defeat Bernie Sanders. I think those were some of her asks, right? So if she's as close with with Harris as she says she is, perhaps she's an influence on the other side. But the stuff about Harris that's going to be the most, I think, problematic and stuff to watch for is her relationship to Antitrust. She's going to be a bit more of an Obama type, closer with Silicon Valley than perhaps Biden is. Maybe less willing to be an antitrust, break up big business type of person. And it might just be a little bit more, and she's probably closer with Wall Street than Biden has been, at least over the past 4 years. So those are the pressure points they're going to try to push. But it remains to be seen if, what the end result is of that pushing, in the same way with the Gaza policy as well.
We'll see.
We'll see.
All right, I'm opening up the phones. Look at that. I've done it.
Wow,
I realize
12:47.
it's already 12:47, but we started a couple minutes late, so it's really like 12:42.
Good job.
646-257-3920. We're going to head to the fun half probably in about 15 minutes. 646-257-3920. Red Stoner, do you believe it's fair to equate student loan debt and the permanent managerial class to chattel slavery? Chattel specifically. Would you consider that a cynical use of black trauma? Your live chat mods need to know. Would I equate it to chattel slavery? No, I would equate it more to indentured servitude in some fashion, I guess. All right, let's do this so I can be I can have bragging rights. Calling from a 615 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Is it me?
Yes, it is you.
Hi. I was just wanting to call in and talk about whether Kamala's Senate experience would have any effect on things. Sorry, I did this in the wrong order. I'm calling from Tennessee.
Are you calling from Tennessee? What's your name?
My name is Rin. You've called me out on IMs as Ryan before.
Okay, Rin, I apologize. Rin from Tennessee. And you want to know, what's the question?
Sorry. So Kamala Harris used to be in the Senate.
Yeah.
She was in the Senate for 4 years. And I'd heard that it was possible that she might use some of her Senate connections as a way to have like a sounding board as we hope she becomes president. Is that something that's possible? Like, should we be looking at who she was with in the Senate, since she was with foreign policy and with the Middle Eastern stuff and all of that? Would she use those people as her sounding board instead of maybe people that she's working with now?
Well, I don't know if she was on any foreign policy Senate committees, if I'm being honest with you. I would have to look into that. She was on, I think, the Environment and Public Works Committee. I guess she was on the Intelligence Committee. Definitely quite junior. But yeah, I mean, the thing about her Senate record is you can look at it both ways, right? Although, actually, I will say you can look at it one way once I give you the two ways. One is she cultivated a record that she could say she was had the most liberal voting record in the Senate during her short time there, clearly as an effort to run for president. And that didn't end up working, and she got clumsy and abandoned Medicare for all and a lot of the parts of the Green New Deal, and she flamed out. But what that also shows is that she can be pressured and wants to at least appeal to the base to some degree. So that's part of what has maybe informed my desire to emphasize that she can be pushed more than like this, oh, they're all the same, oh, they suck. Biden, I just wish we could transport ourselves back to 2020 and remind ourselves how Biden ran in that primary. He said he would veto Medicare for all. He was one of the only Democrats who emphatically said he would not condition aid to Israel. Warren, Bernie, Buttigieg all indicated that they'd be open to it, at least to some degree, in a debate question.
I mean, in that case, he's really held to what he said he would do.
He did, but he did exceed expectations on things like antitrust, and the Build Back Better plan was really ambitious. So that shows that even the guy who ran as the most conservative Democrat in the primary on rhetoric can be pushed to do some things that are really good. So why can't Harris? And that's the thing that I don't understand about how people are reacting to this. Anyway, go ahead, caller.
Well, wasn't she one of the first people to call for a ceasefire, and then she had to be dialed back, and they had to be like, no, what she meant was, a temporary ceasefire or whatever it was.
That's exactly right. She was the first in the administration to call for a ceasefire, and the reports were that they heavily edited her speech beforehand, and it went further than what she said. Now, these are reports.
So isn't it likely that that will be the case when she becomes president?
It depends on the circumstances. It depends on the constituencies and the pressure campaign. So, I share that's a possibility, and I feel optimistic about it, right?
Well, given what she said yesterday, isn't there a little bit more optimism?
I think so, but I'm a lot of really smart people who I respect are telling me that I may not be right about this. So,
okay,
I don't know, but I hear you. I agree.
Okay.
Appreciate the call.
Less hope than I thought.
All right.
Thanks, Rin.
Thanks, Rin.
Bye.
All right, one more just to lock in my calling from a 440 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, is this me?
Yes, it is you.
Okay, this is Nick from Ohio.
Nick from Ohio, home of JD Vance.
Yes, unfortunate. It was very sad that my first election I could vote in, I had to vote against JD Vance and he won. So still pretty disappointed about that to this day.
Well, you'll have a chance to vote against him again, and maybe he'll lose this time.
I really hope so. It'd really make me proud of my home state if we were to do away with him for good. I wanted to call about something that I think isn't really being talked about a lot when it comes to the Kamala Harris campaign that I think is really interesting. I think that obviously people have talked about how she has a really big chance to turn out youth voters here, especially if she begins to make a turn to a significantly more support for the Palestinian people. But and I think I have faith that she'll do that in the coming months. At least that might be my naive hope. I don't know. But I think something that hasn't been really talked about is how her recent social media campaign has been really at least from what I've been seeing, really motivating for a lot of people, younger people my age. Like, I'm 20 years old, and several people that I have known who were incredibly demotivated when it came to like voting for like Biden, and were considering not even showing up, have recently been invigorated by her presence on like social media, like TikTok and whatnot. And I do think that if she were to make an effort to swing to, again, like I said, more support for the Palestinian people and ending the genocide that's happening there, I think that in tandem with her current efforts on TikTok could really, really mobilize the youth that in a way that I think hasn't really been seen in a while. So I just wanted to talk about that.
I mean, I think it's possible. I think, look, the primary problem that Biden was facing, and as much as I would have liked the primary problem for him to have been facing was his policy in terms of Israel and Gaza. There's just simply, on some level, we may be engaging in some level of wish casting that, reading the tea leaves and seeing that her rhetoric is different and that's going to mean a material difference. There's also a certain amount of wish casting in that what was dragging Biden down was his stance on Israel. It certainly wasn't helping, that's for sure. But the reality is, if you look at the polling, even with young people, to the extent that they considered that a top issue, it was pretty low down on the list. As much as I, wish that wasn't the case. The biggest issue was just that, broadly speaking, people looked at Biden, and particularly after that debate, prior to it, people are like, he seems really old. And on some level, I think people feel like he was out of touch just by virtue of him being old. A lot of the problem he was having with voters was people who are just not that heavily interested in politics, and who don't think of a presidency as meaning, who are they putting at the DOJ? Who are they putting at the FTC? Who are they putting at the EPA? Who are they putting on the Postal Service, the Postal Service Board? Or, what are they doing about this sort of, what are they doing about exports for liquid natural gas permits? I mean, that's not the way that most people engage with politics. People who listen to the show are different, in part because they listen to the show, but it's also self-selecting. They listen to the show because they have a different understanding of politics. And so I think the biggest issue with Biden is he was suppressing enthusiasm to vote against Donald Trump. Because
right. Well, the double hater thing, Sam, that I said to you before the show, that Nate Cohn of the New York Times had there was 20% of people said that they hated both. Harris has already cut that down from 20% to 8%.
Yeah, that's a crazy figure. I mean, it's conceivable that 1 or 2% of those are like, well, now I don't hate, I don't hate Trump as much because I really hate, but the large percentage of those people, obviously, if not all of them, basically are just like, I don't have an animosity towards Harris. Part of it was her age. Part of it was probably also, some, they've had 3 years to work on Biden, and the machine, the right-wing machine that creates these memes or, these ideas, it's far more effective than it was years and years ago. And maybe it only takes 3 years before you can fully demonize someone like Biden, regardless of what was happening in Gaza, because certainly on the right, they didn't care about that. But so I think, there's a big burst of relief. I think she is she represents not just a younger a person running for president than, obviously Obama was young too, but he combined with a member of the boomer generation, and she's not going to. This is like, in many respects,
when Biden was trying to like, be like, I'm still, relatable to young folks by doing that like dark Brandon thing. And I think that like,
Yeah.
to an extent, it was a little funny. And I think it worked like the tiniest bit, but the issue is that he would do that. And then the next day you'd like watch him and he wouldn't be able to form a coherent sentence. And it just felt like, I can't really feel like I felt like a lot of people my age, especially the people I know who don't really stay connected to politics too much, they'd see that and just think like, I don't know what's going on here. Like, I'm not enthusiastic about this whatsoever. And Kamala Harris, even though, again, she's only like, I think she's 60, I don't remember.
She's 59. Yeah, but she looks
59?
younger. Yeah.
Yeah, I think even like regardless of that, like people who I know who aren't connected to politics, again, who are my age, they are getting these, like, I think her, again, social media campaign has honestly been pretty good in terms of rallying enthusiasm. And I think part of that is too is just the relief that everyone feels. But people I know people I know are excited to like go out and vote. And I saw a number earlier today about how there was like 44,000 like people who registered to like vote in the past few days.
Well, they're having these calls, right? Like there was black women for the 40,000 black women on the night she announced. Then there was a black men for Harris. There was a white woman call that got even larger. It's a little, silly, but the black woman call was about, black sororities and like organizations getting out the vote for her as opposed to whitely. I don't really know how that went down, but you're right about the enthusiasm, and I find like excitement in that in and of itself. I think democracy can be energizing for the party that actually represents the majority of the country. The Republicans are a minoritarian party, and like actually, regardless of like what we know fully about her stances right now, the fact that there's a coalition of people who are excited and she stands for things that are broadly beneficial to this country is a good thing. But I know I'm just a soft-hearted, sentimental person. But for me, there's value in democracy in and of itself, and that's what's exciting.
And I just want to add, before I let you go, that, approaching 60, not that old. It's possible it's not that old.
Yeah, it's just...
What makes you say that?
Sometimes to people who are 20 years old, it seems a little steep, but I think it's actually
I get it.
I think it's a testament to her
I get it. I get it. It's a little steep.
Yeah.
I get it if you're about approaching 20. I get it. Yeah, no, I get it. But I'll tell you, it's not that old. All right, appreciate the call.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye. I got to hear this from another 20-year-old that I don't even know.
Biden was born closer to the midst of the Civil War than he was to today, so he can't be a boomer. What is he? Silent generation?
Maybe the great generation.
The greatest generation.
Greatest generation. I mean,
either
there's
way,
a lot
too
of
old.
crossover there. I mean, no, I was not born closer to the Civil War than. But Biden's 81.
No, I was talking about you.
Biden's 81. No, he would be. When did the baby boom start? 46, 45. I mean, it's pretty close. All right, we're going to take a break and head into the fun half. We're going to take more phone calls. We are going to go through all this stuff with JD Vance. It has been fascinating.
Yeah, very funny. Just the rollout of all his stupid, creepy comments. Apparently, he went on Megyn Kelly today to try to
well, that'll do it.
Smooth things over.
When you got to go on Megyn Kelly to try, it's fascinating because Megyn Kelly is sort of like, remember, she was on NBC. So there's still this sense of like, well, Megyn Kelly, she's sort of like mainstream, not so mainstream anymore. I guess Biden's the late silent generation. Greatest generation cutoff is 27. This is
he was not born in 1927.
No, but the greatest generation cutoff is 27.
Yeah.
So
yeah, silent generation.
Sarah from Wallingford says, didn't you have a contributor on a few weeks ago that confirmed you are very old, Sam? I think his name was Saul something. Yeah, that guy may not see.
Correspondent.
And I will also acknowledge that, yes, I watched at least half of the Some More News on YouTube released a Tim Pool documentary.
Oh my God, really?
And I was referenced in it as as being middle-aged, which I actually
appreciate.
Yeah, I feel like that may underestimate my age just slightly. I hope I'm middle-aged. That's going to place me in one of the oldest people ever alive if I'm at my middle age right now. So I'll take it.
Sam, could I ask for actually quickly though a shofar for myself, for a friend of mine?
Sure.
This is maybe my first shofar request. So yesterday, my best friend in the world gave birth to her first baby, and I didn't even want to jinx it because she was in labor yesterday, and I was just like panicked trying to get her husband on, get random texts, but trying not to bother them too much. But I'm really excited, and her sister, which is just so crazy, had a baby on the exact same day within an hour and a half of one another. So they're going to be cousin brothers, and just super exciting. So if everybody could send good energy over her way, I'm sure the family would appreciate it.
All right, folks, we're going to take a break, head into the fun half, but we have put a link in the podcast and YouTube descriptions. Y'all remember the Muhammad Al-Dagma that we had on a couple months ago. We had him on a couple of times to give us an update of his family, who all of you contributed. I don't know if all of you, but many, many of you contributed money to their GoFundMe to help get at least much of their family out. His niece had Down syndrome, or has Down syndrome. And obviously, it's horrific for all kids there. But even with Down syndrome, even that type of chaos can be even more debilitating. But at least much of the family was able to get out. They are now fundraising to open a bakery in Egypt. What they've been doing is feeding displaced Palestinians both in Gaza and in Egypt. Apparently, you're able to sort of now smuggle some food across the border and resources. So we'll put that link in our podcast and YouTube description. It is a drop in the bucket in terms of the suffering and misery there, but it is a drop in the bucket. So there you go. Just a reminder, your support. In fact, forget joining the show today. If you got to choose between helping those folks on the GoFundMe and joining the show today, put joining the show off for another month, and go and help some folks there who are trying to help other families. So we'll put that link in there. Also, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, and hot chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. It's co-op. They're great for their suppliers. Just a great bunch of people to support. So check it out. Emma, ESVN.
Next week we'll be back. We'll be talking about all the training camp storylines. Jamar Chase not getting a new contract. Oh yeah. Are the Bengals going to ruin this by being cheap? We'll talk about the Olympics and more. YouTube.com/ESVN show. And
do we know what's happening on Left Reckoning?
Yeah, so on Tuesday, Matt and David spoke with writer Jacobin, author of the definitive book, which was critical of President Biden, Yesterday's Man, Branko Marcetic, to talk about Biden's decision to drop out of the race, as well as Kamala Harris's rise as the likely Democratic Party candidate. So youtube.com/Left Reckoning for that, and patreon.com/Left Reckoning to access their post game.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we will see you in the fun half. If you're listening on the phone, we'll be back to you at the beginning of the fun half. Bye-bye. 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now, and I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now, and I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now, but I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow. What? What is that going on? It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second. Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt.
What is up, everyone?
Nomi Key.
You did it. Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Bradley, you want to say hello?
Sorry to disappoint everyone. I'm just a random guy.
It's all the boys today.
Fundamentally false.
No, I'm sorry. Women's
Stop talking for a second and let me finish.
Where is this coming from, dude?
But dude, you want to smoke this 7A?
Yes.
Hi, me? This me?
Yes.
Is this me?
Is it me?
It is you.
Is this me? Hello, is this me?
I think it is you. Who is you? No sound. Every single frickin' day. What's on your mind?
Sports. We can discuss free markets and we can discuss capitalism.
I'm gonna go throw up.
Libertarians. They're so stupid, though. Common sense says, of course.
gobbledygook.
We fucking nailed him.
So what's 79 plus 21?
Challenge Matt.
I'm positively quivering. I believe 96, I want to say.
857-210-501. 1/2. 3/8.
9/11, for instance.
$3,400, $1,900.
654 $3 trillion sold. It's a zero-sum game.
Actually, you're making me think less of it.
But let me say this. Poop.
Call it satire. Sam goes to satire.
On top of it all, my favorite part about you is just like every day, all day, like everything you do.
Without a doubt. Hey, buddy, we see you. All right, folks.
It's just the week being weeded out, obviously.
Yeah, sun's out, guns out. I don't know.
But you should know.
People just don't like to entertain ideas anymore.
I have a question. Who cares?
Our chat is enabled, folks.
I love it.
I do love that.
Look, gotta jump. Gotta be quick. I gotta jump.
I'm losing it, bro.
2 o'clock. We're already late, and the guy's being a dick. So screw him. Sent to a gulag?
Outrageous.
Like, what is wrong with you?
Love you, bye.
Love you. Bye-bye. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland. It is the fun half on a Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Emma just saw a tweet from Andy Bashir.
Yeah,
what does it
thanks
say?
to all these wonderful people who tag me in things because they know I'm on the, I'm interested in these Veep stakes. I just really don't want it to be Shapiro or Kelly. Andy Bashir, who's definitely like him, Walls. Roy Cooper's a good choice too, but I think Bashir is kind of like the safest selection. Says, no matter what the future holds, Kentucky is my home. That will never change because I'm one proud Kentuckian. Now, that would be a weird thing for me to be like to you saying, Sam, no matter what the future holds, I'll always love the Majority Report. Like, that will never change because I'm one proud employee for now.
I mean, to be fair, you say that a couple of times a week.
Well, the more IMs I get about how I'm on hopium, the more likely it makes me want to just like leave this industry altogether. But anyway, if I see hopium or wish casting one more time, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Honestly, like a tweet like that makes me feel like we're 20 minutes away from her nominating, announcing him as the pick. I mean, I can't imagine that's the case. I would imagine that they would wait. I think it would be silly to do it, but it
he's
also sounds like
been doing this for like a week. Like he has been really heavily hinting, and I can't tell if he's trying to will it into existence or if it's
that seems a little. If I'm
presumptuous,
if I'm in Kamala's camp, I look at these tweets and I'm going like, what's going on with this dude? That's a little bit weird. I mean, that it is a weird thing to be, honestly, it's a weird thing to be tweeting out unless you really have a sense that you're going somewhere. But maybe him, I feel like, there's a better way to articulate that if he's just responding to everybody going like, we want you to go, and him going like, look, I'm Kentucky through and through. I don't know what the future will bring, but that'll never change. It's a little bit different. It's just a different phrasing in terms of where you put in the emphasis, but who knows?
But he is a good choice, right? In the sense of like, he won't piss off the teachers union and the anti-genocide people, teachers unions and the anti-genocide people in the same way that Shapiro would. He's youthful. He's, I think, a foil for J.D. Vance.
I've been saying Bashir for a while, but I have to say that now I sort of like him. Just
you're sold on Walz.
I mean, I think it's going to be Bashir over Walz because he's just going to appear more youthful, and also I think like that Southern accent's going to be attractive. Again, let's be clear, this is a DEI hire.
Right.
For Kamala Harris. And so it's going to be a white guy. And
he's got to fulfill the quotas. We can't tell if he's qualified.
And exactly. And I think, having a Southern accent on the ballot is going to, or twang, if you will. I don't know if you call it full on Southern accent, pretty close from a guy from Massachusetts, from Worcester.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like Southern accent to me. And I think if Shapiro is out, and I do think he's out. I mean, I think from
your mouth to God's ears.
There's just too many negatives with Shapiro in my mind. And I think probably that are even from the perspective of the Harris team, Pennsylvania still remains huge because you can make up Wisconsin, you can make up Michigan as individual states. She's in play now in Arizona. You can make it up with Arizona, but she's in play in Georgia now, maybe in North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Unlikely, but it's still a potential. But Pennsylvania is one of those states. There's just too many electoral votes. You need that state for a Democrat to win. And if you're not going to go with Shapiro because of the liabilities it creates across the board in other places, as listeners have pointed out, they call it Pennsyltucky.
Yep.
And they don't call it Pennsyltucky because it's reminiscent of Virginia or Oklahoma. It's because it's reminiscent of Kentucky. And so, the idea
borders Ohio, like Kentucky, Cincinnati is on one side, it's Ohio, on one side, it's Kentucky. Like we're not going to get Ohio, but like it's a really interesting contrast with Vance, right?
So we'll see.
And also, but even if the presidential election is not going to go to Ohio, extremely important to drive up turnout for Sherrod Brown.
Yep.
So having a guy from Kentucky, I think, helps Sherrod Brown enormously.
Education unions, AAUP, AFT, are universally pressuring Harris' campaign not to pick Shapiro. Yes, and I think it's going to be unlikely that she does, at least in part by that. We spoke to Jennifer Berkshire 2 days ago about Shapiro and his charter schools and whatnot. And the thing I like about that too is it signals to other Democrats across the country that if you want a meaningful future in Democratic politics, you're not going to get there by being pro-voucher and pro-charter.
Yes.
I mean, this is the way that you discipline a party. You know, voters have a much tougher time to discipline outside of a primary, but these are all their processes that take place.
And
More institutional disciplining can happen.
And Sam, I'm curious if you think her kind of zeroing in on some of these successful Midwestern governors or them being so in the orbit, whether it be Whitmer, I know she's not going to pick another woman, but whether it be Whitmer, whether it be Pritzker or Walz as well, I know they're important states, but they also have governed, the three of them, really responsibly, I think, as Democrats. Like, there have been a lot of decisions, even Walz, who's the best ideologically of them, and there's a strong DSA in Minnesota, but he vetoed like that gig worker bill, which sucked, right? But overall, ideologically, he's my favorite. But even, billionaire Pritzker's done some good things for people in Illinois, like a lot. Gretchen Whitmer, we've talked about her record. Part of why I'm optimistic is it seems like there are Democrats in a newer generation that are deciding to govern. And it's a little easier, I know, when you have both chambers in your states. But I think that that's maybe a message that this campaign is getting with all of these people being involved or considered, is perhaps Kamala Harris is going to govern if she becomes president and try to make aggressive changes. Even Biden did that with, Build Back Better was an ambitious proposal. One of the more ambitious proposals that the Democrats have put forward in decades, right?
The initial version before, Biden let Sinema and Portman sort of mess with it. But even the IRA itself, I mean, we've talked about this. I mean, there's been a huge sort of manufacturing and greening implications to the IRA, maybe not as much as we need, but certainly, relative to what we've seen in the past, it's a low bar, I grant you, but I've lived through that low bar period. It was no fun.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
It's not just a sort of a theoretical standard. It's like, you're living through those eras. So, all right, but let's talk about just briefly. Let's just check in on, and we anticipated this about Kamala Harris, that there was just going to be a difficulty in running against her. There's going to be a difficulty in running against any Democrat with only 3 or 4 months in which to build a narrative. But in particular, in terms of Harris, is going to be even more difficult because the Republican Party and its sort of media apparatus, and by that I mean almost the Republican Party, there's not a huge daylight between, there's a reason why like 3 of their senators have podcasts,
right?
And that are almost indistinguishable from, Ben Shapiro's, or, and I think, the Fox News is literally like, Sean Hannity is Trump's advisor. I mean, there's not a lot of daylight here. And their inclination is to call her a DEI candidate. I mean, they had to be. When the leader of the House has to go to fellow lawmakers and say, guys, don't be overtly racist or misogynist, you have a problem.
Yeah.
Because they don't ever want to be saying that. They don't ever want that reported that they had to say that. But they had to, because not saying it would have been even more problematic for them. And even Vivek Ramaswamy, who himself is a person of color, has to sort of like figure out, like, how do I criticize her without raising this? And it's sort of like, well, maybe I can just keep talking about other Black people, maybe, and that will scare. Here is Vivek Ramaswamy on Hannity,
spitting bars
last night. We'll have some fun. See you on the trail. But guess who's going to replace Kamala Harris? I mean, they don't know what to do here.
So look, I say this as somebody who a year ago predicted Joe was not going to be the nominee. I'm going to predict that Kamala Harris is not going to be the nominee either. And the reason is if they get one shot, they're going to take their absolute best shot that they can.
Who is it?
That's clearly not Kamala
Who's
Harris. Well, look, I think there's a lot of open possibilities. I would not write off the possibility that it ends up being Michelle Obama. She checks off the same identity politic boxes, and it's going to be somebody who's maybe above the fray that doesn't create the same kind of infighting that could debilitate their party.
So Barack,
the reality, Sean,
Barack is literally leading the charge, trying to keep his, keeping plausible deniability, and then his own wife takes over. What do you call that?
I think you call it realism. Sean, the reality is they're going to take their best shot. They waited till after the RNC convention. That timing is optimal for them because it gets closer and closer to the eventual election. They're going to drag this out, I predict, through the Democratic nomination convention at the DNC in late August. I think Michelle Obama is not off the table.
I don't think so.
So what Democratic Party infighting is he talking about?
I think it's honestly like I think it's honestly like they're just trying to pretend like there's a lot more dissent than, I mean, no one could have predicted. I mean, and to your credit, you said there was going to be a lot of enthusiasm. People are going to be so excited. But I mean, even still, no one was going to predict $100 million in, 36 hours or whatever it was. No one was going to predict Zoom calls with 150,000 people, with 40,000 people, with 30,000 people. Nobody was going to predict. I mean, because Zoom kept crashing.
Yes, because of the enthusiasm.
And we should also say that if Michelle Obama does become the nominee at the convention, this latest piece of news would have been a masterstroke, because of course this is what's called lulling them to sleep.
This is what you have to do when you're running a shadow campaign, right? A shadow campaign.
Do we have
for
the
Kamala.
tear sheet, or do we even have the audio? Might even be worthwhile.
Well, at least here we have the endorsement, the office of Barack and Michelle Obama. This week we got to catch up with a friend, blah, blah, blah. More thrilled to endorse Kamala, we couldn't be more excited for her or more thrilled to endorse Kamala Harris as the Democratic nominee for president of the United States. And right after Biden withdrew, the polling from CBS showed that 79% said Kamala Harris should be the nominee, 21% said someone else. And that was July 21st through 22nd. So snap polls were now July 26th. So this was 48 maximum hours after Biden had dropped out. Already nearly 80% of the party wants her to be the nominee. So they're just wish casting because they want to be able to say she's a man again or something like that. Obama,
well, I think
although they'll try that with Harris. They'll try that with Harris.
They're, their whole sort of like their whole worldview, or I should say their perspective that they've been telling their audience for years, that Michelle Obama and Barack Obama have been, marionetting Joe Biden, that Joe Biden's not even been the president, that's really been Barack Obama behind the whole thing. They just, that storyline just played out. It just finished. They failed. We don't need to play the video phone call. I mean, it's sort of cringy, to be honest.
Yeah,
that's sort of that was my only opposition. It's kind of corny.
We're not trying to dampen enthusiasm for Kamala Harris here, right?
I mean, look, Barack Obama, for many of us, was a disappointment, and or more in many instances, across the board. It is a different Democratic Party today, but there's still, candidates are still going to, if there's a West Wing storyline that they can do, or character arc, or that type of dialogue, they're going to engage in it because it appeals to certain groups of people. But
Vivek has been making this prediction about Michelle Obama for like a few months at this point. So this is how he's trying to build up his podcast audience. He's not going to diverge until the die is cast, but he's just like Kamala Harris is both black, but she's also Indian American, as is Vivek Ramaswamy there. So you can see how he decides to emphasize the racism against black people in his Sean Hannity appearance. That's kind of maybe a topic he feels a little bit more comfortable with.
This I find fascinating. Again, this is everything they're going to try and do is going to be sort of like third order. They're going to try to imply something to try and imply something, right? I mean, because, and that's why I think another reason why Vivek brings up the Obamas. It's like, we can't say she's DEI. We can't say she's black. But we can say like, well, Barack Obama was black and Michelle Obama is black. And
these things come in threes.
And these things come in threes. And so you know what that means. Which in and of itself is also a stupid analogy because Barack Obama won twice. And so you don't necessarily, they think that Obama is some type of evil figure. They don't have a critique of him from a policy standpoint. They just don't like the fact that he was a Kenyan Muslim, not born in America. But here is Ben Shapiro, shortly after Harris comes on, making what I'll tell you, I don't know if folks remember this from 2008. The big criticism of Barack Obama is that he's like a celebrity. This was before they nominated literally a celebrity.
Mm-hmm.
Not a politician who became a celebrity who became a politician. But back then they were like, he's just a celebrity. They're going back to play this hit again, and it's going to be just as smack themselves in the face. Here's Ben Shapiro.
Exactly do her qualifications look like other than, again, the sort of intersectional magic of Kamala Harris and the fact that Democrats have to manufacture enthusiasm for, I've never seen this much manufactured enthusiasm for anyone outside of maybe Taylor Swift's last album. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, me neither. It's so obvious. You cringe when you see it. But
exactly to her qualifications.
Okay, so first off, I mean, look at that picture that they use of her. It's the picture of laughing. That's like one of their go-tos. She laughs a lot.
How suspicious! Like she could be laughing at you and talking down to you. How do you know? How do you know?
And then Shapiro goes with like his version of DEI, which is, if I say it really quickly, people won't hear that I said intersectionality, as opposed to, let's say, white guy who's got a Southern accent and can appeal to, maybe white working class voters, that DEI hire for her ticket. But then like they're trying to pretend like, oh, all the Democrats are pretending that they're happy. Well, I would say like, well done, because I'm fooled by them.
They went the full way. They donate to fool the right wing into showing enthusiasm. They broke small dollar donation records 2 days in a row just to feign enthusiasm to the right. That's what happens when you're over the target.
That's what happens to the target. And now, if the Democrats are able to feign this enthusiasm enough to vote for her in this way, it's going to be a little bit less cringy. But the amazing thing is, Taylor Swift, nobody knows less about what's going on in our culture than me. I will put that. I will go against that. Maybe folks who don't, maybe English is like their third language, might know a little bit less, but probably not, because they probably read about it in their first language. I'm not proud about this fact. It is like, it dogs me at different points, but I know that Taylor Swift is famous. Like the idea that it's somehow her fame or excitement around Taylor Swift is manufactured. Didn't she sell like
it's manufactured by her to get more fans to come to her shows, like manufactured by her having a very robust marketing team. I don't even.
Well, I guess the thing that I'm confused by with it is like I don't know what the value of saying like of comparing Kamala Harris to like whatever your feelings about Taylor Swift are, like de facto the most popular musician arguably on the entire planet.
Well, because she's been, I mean, God knows why, but she's been the target of misogyny this year because she's being shown at our football games.
Oh, yes,
I
right, the
mean,
whole-
like,
yeah.
what? I could see a random guy with a face paint in the stands with his shirt off, and yet they're cutting to the celebrity on the sidelines.
And also the whole thing that at the Super Bowl, Travis Kelce was going to propose to Taylor Swift, and then Taylor Swift was immediately
Endorsed
going to
Biden.
endorse Biden.
Yeah,
That was
she
their
was just going to go,
conspiracy.
oh my God, look at the ring. Go vote for Biden. Like, they're insane.
When he said intersectional magic, you know what that's a dog whistle right for? Like some women, like black women, have been posting black girl magic about that's a phrase, right? Black girl magic. So he can't say that, right? He can't say DEI. He can't say
Right.
mock black girl magic. He's got to say, oh, intersectional magic. And Ben Shapiro's not good at incorporating culture into his right-wing commentary. There were other
No.
people like Breitbart who did it, who like understood it. He's not good at it. He did that whole burning the Barbie thing over the summer to say that Barbie was a terrible movie. Hey, I got news
He
for
also
you.
predicted it was going to go bust at the box office, like in the first week. Apparently, it was not a bust
No.
at the box office.
And that's the thing that will be funny about, and I'm going to say a very lib thing here, right? Okay, I'm just preparing people for this. This is like, they could Barbie this election in the sense that driving female turnout, focusing on families, care, child care, doing all of that, breaking previous models about who's considered electable, or in the terms of Barbie, like what's profitable, right? Now all the studios realize, oh my God, we can make movies that have a big budget that are directed towards women. There you go. That's what the Barbie effect was. Now, like with Harris, doesn't have the baggage of Hillary Clinton, right? But she's a woman that's, I think, making women excited to vote for her. And that, I think, scares them a little bit because